up that and Mayor Bottoms has COVID.
We'd like to call to order the City of Douglasville's regular council meeting, city council meeting for tonight, which is July the 6th. We'll have our invocation by Reverend Dr. LaSonia Richardson of Love Christian Center. After that, we'll have our Mayor Pro Tem Terry Miller lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand for the invocation.
God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea. Though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Father, in Jesus' name we give thanks for the city of Douglasville and its government. We hold up in prayer before you the men and women who are in positions of authority. We pray and intercede for the mayor, the city council, the policemen and policewomen. We pray the Spirit of the Lord rest upon them. We believe that skillful and godly wisdom has entered into their hearts, and knowledge is pleasant to them. Discretion watches over them, and understanding keeps them. Lord, we ask that you surround them with men and women who make their hearts and ears attentive to godly counsel and do that which is right in your sight. We believe you cause them to be men and women of integrity, who are obedient concerning us, that we may lead quiet and peaceable lives in all godliness, honesty, and safety. Thank you, Lord, that we have you for our refuge, even the Most High for our habitation. So no evil shall befall us, and no plague will come near our homes, because you, Father, have given your angels charge over us to keep us in all our ways. And so, Lord, we ask that you continue to keep our city leadership, continue to guide them, that they may serve and protect your people. In Jesus' precious name I pray, amen. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem. We appreciate you leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance after this 4th of July observance. And Dr. Richardson, thank you so much for that beautiful invocation and for that blessing that you prayed upon us. I will do the announcements and presentations and then follow with the agenda as printed. I'd like to welcome you to the City of Douglasville's regular City Council meeting. I'm Douglasville's Mayor, Rochelle Robinson. Today's meeting is being conducted or in whole or by part and by teleconference. All the elected officials and individuals with agenda items are present, and those wishing to comment during a public hearing or comments from citizens and delegates will be allowed to via audio Zoom software. This open meeting of the Douglasville Mayor and City Council will be conducted by teleconference consistent with the official code of Georgia, annotated section 50-14-1G, due to emergency conditions involving the public safety in order to mitigate the transmission of coronavirus and to reduce COVID-19 illness. That code section, which you can find posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows local governments to meet by teleconference in the event of emergency, so long as means are afforded for the public to have simultaneous access to the teleconference meeting. For this meeting, we are convening partially by Zoom software, as shown on the city's website, describing how the public may join, which is via YouTube media platform. Instructions for this meeting is all applicants and other participants be advised that this meeting will allow public comment as well. Even if members of the public do not provide comment, participants are advised that people may be listening who do not provide comments, and listeners are not required to identify themselves. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. This council meeting, we will vote tonight. It will be a little bit different from how we conduct our meetings, our work sessions that we had last Thursday. If the business is any citizen wishes to speak is not listed as an agenda item, there will be ample time under the item comments from citizens and delegates section to discuss any other business. I'll just go over a few protocol issues, and then we'll get right into our voting meeting. I've asked that each person will keep your comments and presentations on a professional level, dealing with the facts that are important for this governing body to make our decisions. We will not accept comments that are considered by the chair to be of a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals. You'll receive a warning from the chair. If you deviate from this requirement, a second deviation will result in the chairman discontinuing your opportunity to speak. Only one person speaking at a time. Please do not disrupt the order of this meeting by having conversations with anyone in the audience. We'll ask that if you have any electronic devices, if you have cell phones and iPads and all of that electronic devices, please put those in silent mode or turn those off until after the meeting has been dismissed, so that we will not be interrupting in any way. The agenda items will be handled as the following. The chairperson will read his or her agenda item, then that person representing the agenda item or applicant will make his or her presentation, and then myself and council members will possibly ask additional clarifying questions to help us make our vote this evening. After that, the committee chairperson will ask for comments or statements from the audience. There is a maximum time of 20 minutes for those who wish to speak in favor of the agenda item, and 20 minutes for those to speak in opposition. And each person has 5 minutes. If you'd like, if you have representatives and they'll go beyond the 20 minutes, and that's only 4 people, then you can split it up and have 3 minutes a person. But in totality, each side has 20 minutes. I apologize, 20 minutes. In order to speak, a council meeting speak-in form should be submitted online prior to the meeting, or if you are here in person, you are certainly welcome to come forward. There are forms that you should have filled out on the desk and hand to the city clerk, Ms. Vicki Acker, that's in the rear to your left and my right. No reappearances. Of course, this is not a question and answer format or debate. We are here to just gather the information to help us make our decisions. Please give your name and address for the record when you come forward. And if you have any written materials or anything that you'd like to pass out, our policy is to please give that to our city clerk, and Ms. Acker will make certain that we receive that information from you. So those are all the protocol on how the meetings will be held. It'll go a little faster this evening if you were here last Thursday. And again, we ask if you're for or against the item, if you would come forward and please give us any qualifying or new information. You do not need to repeat any information that you've given us previously at the meetings that we had last Thursday, being that of our legislative work session. Okay, so we will move on with our council meeting as presented and printed in your materials outside. So I'll go to the minutes. We have minutes of the legislative work session of June 11th, 2020, and the regular meeting of June 15th, 2020. I open the floor for a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you so much. It's been motion to approve by Councilman Adams and second by Mayor Pro Tem Miller to approve the minutes of the legislative work session of June 11th and the regular meeting of June 15th, 2020. Do we have any additional comments, questions, or concerns, corrections, or anything to the minutes from council members? Not seeing any. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The minutes are unanimously approved. Now I'll move to the consent agenda. Open the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank
Second.
you. Thank you so much. We switched it up. Mayor Pro Tem has made a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Councilman Mark Adams is the second. Do we have any questions, comments, or concerns from council members as relates to the consent agenda? Thank you. Not seeing any. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We'll move on from the consent agenda to item number 7, which is Economic Development Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Terry Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business under the Economic Development Committee at this time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. We'll move on to Finance Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Mark Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one
Welcome.
item tonight under Finance. Authorize the mayor to sign an agreement with Summit Solutionz NV Incorporated for renovation of the audiovisual system for the downtown conference center. I know that we had discussion on this on Thursday night during committee meetings, and we did have a presentation concerning this item. Are there any other comments or questions of council or any public comment concerning the item? Seeing none, then I make a motion that we approve the item 20-289.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you so much, Councilman Estes. Been properly moved in second. A motion by the chair, Councilman Adams, and second by Councilmember Estes to approve item 20-289. Do we have any additional comments, questions, or concerns from council members as it relates to this item? Thank you. I don't see any. All of those in favor of approving, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. 20-289 is unanimously approved.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all we have under Finance.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll move on to Housing Community Affairs Committee, and the Vice Chair. I was trying to find it real fast. Thank you. I couldn't find my list. Vice Chair is Councilman Mark Adams.
We have no business tonight, Madam Mayor, under Housing and Community Affairs Committee. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Chair. Legislative Intergovernmental Committee, the Vice Chair is Council Member Byrd Danley, so we'll ask Mayor Pro Tem Terry Miller to take that committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mic's not working. Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business under Legislative Intergovernmental Affairs.
Thank you so much. You're a committee member, so that was appropriate for you to take. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. We'll move on to Personnel and Organization Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Chris Watts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business tonight in Personnel and Organization.
Thank you so much, Chairman Watts. We'll move on then to item number 12, which is Planning and Development Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Mark Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have 3 items tonight under Planning and Development. The first item is a motion to remove from the table item 20-179. I put that in the form of a motion.
Thank you. I have a motion to remove from the table item 20-197. Is there a second to remove from the table?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. It's been properly moved in second to move the motion to remove from the table item 20-197. Do we have any additional comments, questions, or concerns from council members? All those in favor of removing this item from the table, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, we have 1 nay, Councilman Estes, but majority rule, so item, it's been properly motion to remove from the table item 20-197.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item B, tabled from June 15th, 2020. Hold a public hearing and consider a request for a change in zoning from PUD, Planned Unit Development, with base zone R6 Single Family Attached Apartment Residential District to LI Light Industrial for 95.052 acres in land lot 169, District 1, Section 5, Parcel 4, application by IDI Logistics. That's item 20-197, and Ms. Patrice Williams is going to bring us up to date on this item as far as the city is concerned. Go ahead, Ms.
Patrice Williams, Community Development Director, 6701 Church Street. The item before you was tabled June 15th to give the applicant and the residents an opportunity to discuss and potentially address the residents' concerns. The applicant, IDI Logistics LLC, has requested to rezone land lot 169, District 1, Section 5, and Parcel 4 for approximately 95.052 acres from R6 PUD to Light Industrial LI for the development of 2 warehouse facilities. 1, a 605,000 square foot warehouse facility, and 2, a 450,600 square foot warehouse on property located on Riverside Parkway. At this time, I can take any questions you may have for staff.
Are there any questions that the council or Madam Mayor may have of staff before we proceed with the public hearing? Thank you. Appreciate it, Ms. Williams. If the applicant has some information that they would like to provide, Please understand, as our mayor has instructed, give us your name and address for the record as you begin, and then you would have 20 minutes for each of those. 20 minutes for anyone speaking total, and 20 minutes against. How are you this evening, ma'am?
Fine, thank you, Mr. Adams. Mayor Robinson, I'm Kathy Zickert with Smith, Gambrell, and Russell. My address is 1230 Peachtree Street, Suite 3100, and I represent IDI Logistics. So I will be presenting the information on behalf of IDI this evening. I'm going to try and keep my remarks as brief as I can, and also to make sure that I'm introducing new information to you that was not necessarily presented at your work session. As you know, at that point in time, we were hoping for a deferral to meet with the neighbors and be able to resolve some issues. I think actually, Mr. Miller, you were the one who suggested that, if I'm not mistaken. We did have that meeting right before the holiday, and we have come up with what we think is a possible solution, but I cannot tell you that that has been accepted by the neighbors, so we'll see where that goes this evening.
Yes, ma'am.
With that said, I do have a notebook put together. I know y'all really don't know me from Adam's House Cat, and I don't like to say things unless I can back up what I'm saying with the proven facts. So I always put together a notebook which has what I'm referring to in it, so you can look at it and see for yourselves that what I'm telling you is absolutely correct. And Vanna Fowler here is going to distribute those to you.
Thank you.
Well done, Vanna. Yeah. All right, the first thing I want to remind you is where we are procedurally in the posture of this case. And in order to do that, I think I really need to go back quite some time. I think, Mayor Robinson, you were on the council during some of the points in time that Tributary was actually zoned. I'm not sure any of you were here back in 1998, though. And as a consequence, I just want to remind you that when this project first came through, it was a development of regional impact. The Georgia Transportation, the regional GRETA, was not in existence at that point in time. So at that point, the ARC was charged with the responsibility of reviewing the application. And the ARC's responsibility was to make sure that there was nothing about the application that would cause a negative impact upon the city or its citizens. If they, in fact, found the absence of a negative impact, then they were to issue a finding of what is called whether the project is in the best interest of the state. And that is, in fact, what happened when this first application came through. And under tab 1 of the book, you will see that actual recommendation from the ARC back then. The reason I mention that is I think it is important for you to understand the vastness of what was to be developed at Tributary. From the outset, we were looking at the original application in terms of 12,555,000 square feet of office and light industrial space. We are looking at 2,930 residential units. We were looking at approximately 95,000 square feet of retail uses. And in all, we also had a huge green space because there was supposed to be a golf course out there at one point in time. But as a totality, in terms of what that project represented, it would have generated in total 94,000 vehicle trips per day. And notwithstanding that fact, and notwithstanding that the roads were not nearly as good back then as they are now, it was in fact recommended. So you have that history before you in terms of considering what is appropriate to do tonight. Additionally, your own professional staff has recommended approval of this application. That's not a recommendation I ever take lightly. I'm always delighted when my applications get it. They're the people that you have chosen to review these things from a professional standpoint, and they are on board, as is your planning commission. More importantly, even still, however, is once again, this application is a development of regional impact. And this time we had the benefit of a double review by not just ARC, but GRETA. And as a consequence of that approval, or that review, they have also recommended approval. And what is important in terms of that recommendation is that they recommended approval without any conditions whatsoever. I know you all are aware that if there are traffic problems that result from an application in the view of GRETA or ARC, then they will tell the local government what the developer needs to do to improve the road systems and what the city needs to do to improve the road systems. And no such restrictions were placed on this approval. There has been some discussion I've seen on the tapes or watching the Zoom meetings and earlier presentations about whether that study that was done, the traffic study that was done for Greta and ARC, was in fact accurate. And my response to that is several-fold. The first is that Greta doesn't review things in a vacuum. I kind of take this stuff personally because I'm actually a member of the Greta board. And I know for a fact all the work that goes into the study by the Greta staff of these applications and by the ARC. It is thorough, it is considered, and it is pursuant to technical guidelines that are drawn up to apply to everybody. It's not something that you make up as you are going along. And even more importantly, before you get started on that process, Greta tells you what your rules are going to be. And I put in this packet for you under tab number 3, the letter of understanding that issued from Greta in February of 2020, telling us what to study. So you will have an idea of the vastness, again, of the approach that was taken by our traffic engineer in reviewing this application, and it was done pursuant to well-defined standards. I mention that because someone cast aspersions on the fact that we assumed a 2.2% background growth rate and said that couldn't possibly be true, that their actual traffic in the background should be much more than that. It was Greta who told us in that letter to examine the 2.2%, and behind the letter you will find the data that shows from 2017 to date there's only been a 1.9% increase in background traffic. The other aspect of, I think, what is important with Greta is they do not just look at your application, but they look at what else is pending in the DRI realm, what else has been approved, and only then do they make a recommendation. So I would emphasize to you that in actuality it's extremely important here that both Greta and ARC saw fit to recommend approval. So why should you approve it? There are some compelling reasons, in my view, why you should. And the first one is, and it's by no means insignificant, this is the only use that will allow a reasonable economic return. And I'm saying reasonable economic return. I'm not saying huge profit. I'm saying that this applicant, this property owner, should be able to sell this property. This property has been marketed since 1999. It's been marketed for 21 years. During that entire time period, there has not been one single offer to develop it for single-family residential, which you could put in an R6 category, or for multifamily. I suspect some of that has to do with the topography. There's some slopes on this site that make it difficult to deal with from a standpoint of trying to deal with individual housing or individual apartment units. And as a consequence, this has sat for 21 years. Now, originally, as you know, Tributary Development, or Douglasville Development, was the original developer of Tributary, and unfortunately, during the Great Recession, lost all of the property to SunTrust Bank. I actually represented Tributary at the time and continued with SunTrust in an effort to try and keep the project going. And it has now, since 2005, been marketed for over 15 years for the R6 uses without a single offer. Why is there no offer independent of the topography? Number one, it's not a residential site. You're next to a wastewater treatment facility. If you would think about where you want to buy an expensive home in any kind of a community, I don't think your first choice would be down by that wastewater treatment facility, no matter how nice it might be. It's a negative that impacts upon the effectiveness of this property for a residential use. But second, there are other developments in this area of the nature that we are requesting that make it inappropriate for residential use. You have McMaster Carr directly across Riverside Parkway from this particular project, 1 million square feet of warehouse space. You have Keehee, which, as I understand it, actually received some kind of support from the Development Authority, with 450,000 square feet directly across Riverside Parkway from this development. You had approved multiple warehouse spaces for Tyler Perry's movie studio immediately adjacent to this property, and you have already approved for Rooker, as I understand it, 2,250,000 square feet of office space. So this is where that leaves you. If you all can see this graphic, here is our site. Here are the ones that I just mentioned. Vast majority of the industrial is still further down Riverside Parkway, but this area has industrial uses which we believe, and this doesn't even account for Tyler Perry, make that particular piece inappropriate for a reasonable residential use. Every single R6 property that is left in Tributary has already been developed or is now pending with zoning applications for multifamily tracts. This one has not, and there are compelling reasons why. Additionally, we have at least 195 lots that have been sold to builders, but they're still vacant. They are not at this point occupied. So you have 195 lot supply out there of existing lots in the Villages and in Riverbend that are available, and I submit to you again that you would prefer to be in that area as opposed to perhaps on this end. And in addition to the 195 units, there are 55 lots that just haven't been developed at all yet. So we have a 250 lot supply. We've been absorbing lots at 50 per year. And that means that we have effectively a 5-year absorption before any other single-family residential should be ready to hit this market. And we don't know what the economy is doing at this point. 30 million unemployed is down from where it was, but it's still 30 million unemployed. And if you are unemployed, you're not going to be able to get a mortgage. And none of us have a clue right now when coronavirus is going to end, what it's going to do to the economy. And I think that this property owner should not be penalized because of that uncertainty from being unable to develop the property. That's the economic reality that we face. What else is a compelling reason to approve this application? I submit to you that this application is fully compliant with the original intent of the New Manchester DCD. In 2005, when I think you were on the council, Ms. Robinson, when you adopted the last major zoning ordinance for this area, it recites on the first page of the ordinance that, quote, "It is in the best interest of the city of Douglasville for the New Manchester DCD to be developed in the manner originally represented and intended. An express commitment by a prior version of this council to make sure that it continued to be developed as the original vision contemplated." When this original when the original New Manchester DCD was in fact approved, this property sat squarely within the village center, which allowed industrial uses. So you are returning it to exactly what was always contemplated for the site. So in terms of your goals with the 2005 ordinance and what you were trying to do, this is entirely consistent with those goals. 3, it's entirely consistent with your own precedent. You've got McMaster Carr, you've got Keehee, you've got Rooker. Every single one of those was rezoned differently than what that 2005 ordinance reflected. Rooker was R6, like this property is. McMaster Carr and Keehee were actually on the golf course green space property and had to be rezoned to industrial. So your approach to this area, from a consistency standpoint, means that your precedent warrants actually approving this application. Next, you can certainly argue that this is a superior product from an environmental standpoint. I think, again, Mr. Miller, if it was you, if I remember watching the Zoom or whatever it was correctly, you were concerned about possible heat island effects. And one thing I do want to tell you is that because we will be LEED certified and we are using fully reflective surfaces as well as concrete as opposed to asphalt shingles and asphalt on the roads, we will be a considerable lesser impact than what would be 540 multifamily units. So from that standpoint, and I do have that backed up as well in terms of the person who is doing the lead engineering certifying that that's the case. We have less lot coverage than you would have with a multifamily project. Lot coverage with the multifamily under the 2005 ordinance is 80%. We're at 52%. We have less water and sewer use. 570 units, which is what is allowed under the 2006 zoning, would generate 395 gallons per minute of water and sewer use. Our square footage is 54.26 gallons per minute, considerably less in terms of the demand on that service. And we have less traffic than what would result if, in fact, 570 units were developed. 570 units will generate 4,268 vehicle trips per day. The warehouse at the proposed size that we are recommending is less than half that by a long shot, 1,726 vehicle trips per day. And the peak hour impact, when you're talking about rush hour in the morning and rush hour at the evening, is also considerably less from a warehouse use than it would be from a residential use. You're talking 249 in the morning with the residential use versus 153. 278 in the evening with the residential use versus 155. So in terms of actual traffic generation, we are in fact the lesser generated. Next reason is that we have a lesser demand upon services. We have private security, so we don't have any need to be calling the police or have the police protect this area. As I said, we have considerably less demand for sewer and water, and we don't have an impact upon the schools. If you have 570 units of multifamily, you are looking at 68 elementary school children, 28 middle school children, and 67 high school children in terms of the formulas that are used to project school impact. And that's the average. I went from the low to the high and took the average to be as fair as I possibly could. I've been told the schools that serve this site are at capacity now. Allegedly, according to the community that I met with, they want overcrowding because they want to be able to somehow exclude people from further away from New Manchester and to concentrate the New Manchester residents in the schools. But this puts them over regardless. And as a consequence, I don't think that in terms of service demand and impact upon schools, this is a good idea. The proverbial bottom line here is that this has always been a 2,340-acre community with a multitude of uses. Inherently, it has meant a combination of uses. It's always been industrial, office, residential, and retail. And the purported change of focus, notwithstanding, to now needing residential uses is belied by your own efforts, your own actions in approving McMaster-Carr, in approving Keehee, in approving Rooker. We can't help it that Keehee closes its gates so that trucks park on the right-of-way. I think that's absurd, and why Keehee can't be told to keep its gates open is sort of beyond my comprehension. But that's the way the situation is now. We can't control or understand why the county allows trucks to park on public right-of-way. Never heard of such in 41 years of doing this, which is way too long now that I think about it. We can't control that there have been some trucks where entrances are poorly marked that apparently have turned into the neighborhood by accident and then got caught up and turned around. But what we did offer up was an entrance treatment of sufficient size and weight that missing it would be next to impossible, so that you would be able to see where we are and get into it. There's one building out there, is at 1901 Riverside, that you can't even see. It's like a little itty-bitty sign, and I can understand why the trucks bypass it. I understand that these folks want commercial uses, but the fact that they're not here is not our fault and is not going to be affected by this zoning. I actually represent Lidl, and one of the folks the other night said, we want a grocery store. We don't want the great big ones. We want like a Trader Joe's. We want a Lidl. We want an Aldi, something of the smaller size. So I went to Lidl and I said, what would make you interested in this site? And the answer was very, very simple. It was demographics. And let me tell you what those are. According to Lidl, within 1 mile, they're looking for a population of 7,000 people. Within 2 miles, they're looking for a population of 25,000 people. And within 3 miles, they are looking at a population of 50,000 people. I have the radius data, and you've got it in your book, about what is there now in terms of 2020 population. We have exactly 343 in terms of, 873 in terms of population within 1 mile. We have 17,767 within 3 miles, and we have 76,000 within 3 miles. So 3 miles, that's okay, but the lesser areas are not, and Lidl wouldn't consider it as a consequence. So I tried to get somebody interested in this site and was told that that would not happen. And the elimination of 570 multifamily units is not going to make a difference in terms of that particular determination. We do have the support. I can't remember who suggested that we go talk to the owners of the properties, the residential properties that are immediately next door to us. I think they're in the county. I don't think they're in the city. But we did go. We do have their support. That was provided to you this afternoon, I believe, by email, so I didn't want you to think we neglected that. We did meet with the neighbors as you were directing us to do so. And we have not had the opportunity to get back with them, but I think we have come up with something that could, in fact, help in a very meaningful way. My client is willing to commit to give to the city, this is from the top end of their site, a 4.5-acre tract, which they will prepare, they will grade it. It will park 67 trucks. It is directly across from Keehee. If Keehee's trucks have to stop and can't get in because of the gates, they could park here. We are willing to give you that. And we are willing to prepare the dirt so that it can be used for that. And I think that that's something that vastly improves the circumstances that we have now. When I-20 gets bogged down, we are always going to have traffic on Riverside. It's going to happen. But it's always going to happen. And what we're adding to it is not significant enough to warrant the denial of this application, particularly if we can help or at least part of what seems to be the problem. So we would also offer that up. We would have appreciated an opportunity to get back to the neighbors and talk to them about it because we're sort of operating in a vacuum. And we came last week asking for a deferral because that's exactly what we wanted to do. It was clear, apparently, that the neighbors didn't want to defer it, did not want any further discussion, so that's why I'm here tonight trying to put out the facts which warrant the actual approval of this application. But we remain willing to talk. I always think it's better to talk if you can. And I'm not saying their concerns are by any means inappropriate. I mean, I wouldn't want to see those trucks either. But here we are. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we have used the time, the 20 minutes time for the applicant for that presentation. I will now, first of all, ask if the council or if Madam Mayor has any questions of the applicant before we go then to the opposition portion. Open the floor for those questions. Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Ziegler. That's your last name. Yes, ma'am. I appreciate your presentation. It was very thorough, and it was a great synopsis of where we've been and where we currently are and what your applicant or your client is proposing for the future for this site. And you did mention that I was on the council in 2005 when it initially came about. The only thing that I would say about that is, you know, the totality of the project was a PUD, as you know, and it's now we're looking at a rezoning, changing the zoning. So, of course, it's mixed use, like you said, residential, office, retail, all of that. And so I think some of the concern is exactly where all of those entities are and how they work together.
And I don't disagree with that, but
Yes,
I would point out that the other zonings, you have rezoned property not in compliance with the 2005 ordinance. That's my concern.
Yes, ma'am. And from ARC, and I serve on ARC, I'm vice chair of ARC Board of Directors. And so ARC and Greta, great recommendations, and I totally agree with a lot of what they say. But sometimes it's in theory, you know, to say something on paper, but then in all actuality, when you're actually there, things may look differently. So that's the only thing I would add with that is that, of course, traffic, this may not be a whole lot of more traffic considerably based on what the recommendations were from Greta. But when you live in the area, that impact is great to you, although statistically it may not look great, but for the person who's living in the area, you know, it is a great impact. So, but thank you so much for everything. It was very thorough. I really appreciate it. I know when my son was on the swim team, we loved going to Tributary to go to Oz Pizza. And so those are some
I heard
of the
about
things,
Oz Pizza.
yes, ma'am, that more retail could bring to the area or businesses. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I had.
Others? Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question, I don't know if you clarified this or not. What was the zoning on the property when it was purchased by the current owner?
The zoning on the property was R6 in 2012, coming out of the foreclosure because it was done in 2005.
So the owner knew what the zoning was.
In 2012, yes.
You had expressed concern that the property was economically disadvantaged by retaining it as R6, but the owner knew it was R6 going in.
In 2012, yes. The owner also knew that McMaster Carr and other industrial users had been approved on R6 property, I believe.
But he understood the risk. And I don't know if you or Mr. Fowler mentioned something. There was an issue about developing it for residences, and you mentioned the topography was impractical for residential development. Have you ever been to San Francisco?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have.
Okay. Or Pittsburgh, for that matter? When you develop a pad for a house, it's actually pretty small. It's not a very big piece. When you develop a pad for a warehouse that's 500,000 square feet, you need a lot more flat property.
True.
And so I'm not sure that argument really holds water if you say that it's not as favorable for residential development as it is for industrial development, since houses can be stacked. You can layer the pads in certain ways. You can work with the topography when you're building a housing development. What I also thought was interesting was that you're making the argument that it's impractical for housing development, but you're outlining a lot of what would be happening if it was developed for 500 some houses. I just thought that was kind of interesting. Actually, you did. Last question, you did answer. You talked. You said Lidl. Lidl was the
Rhymes
company.
with needle.
Yeah, that's the same owners as Aldi's, I think, right?
No, there's that, oh gosh.
Different corporation? Same model. Though.
Competitors.
Same model, though.
Yes.
Okay.
27,000 square foot size.
And they needed how many people within a 3 mile square?
The 3 mile square was 50,000.
How much?
50.
50. Okay.
And 2 miles is 25, and 1 mile is 7.
Did you investigate other retailers like Whole Foods and
I don't represent Whole
Trader
Foods,
Joe's
so
or any of those?
I do know that's a considerably larger store, so I suspect their radius requirements are larger and higher, but no, I did not.
I think maybe from a certain perspective, you have to say that those numbers have to start somewhere. Okay. Actually, that's all I have for now, at the moment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. Other comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Coach Watt.
I was just curious, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The projects where zoning was changed that were mentioned, what were approximately the dates on those?
I cannot.
I was wondering if anybody on staff would know approximately, is it been in the last?
McMaster Carr, I believe, was pretty shortly after the 2005 ordinance, because it was in the hunt back then when Tributary was still owned by Douglasville Development. But I can't give you the dates.
And I guess I'm just wondering about the development, other development along that corridor that, that's adding to what the residents have expressed their problem with. The other development of warehouses, I've heard the number 13. I haven't done an exact count, but and I understand precedent, but I just because I guess from one viewpoint, the residents might argue that that the precedent that may have been set by previous councils maybe shouldn't have been set. And I'm not speaking for them. Just hearing what I've heard over the last few weeks in our meetings, nobody has actually said that, but you pointed out the precedent that's been set, and I just was curious about those dates. So it's been 6, 7+ years ago that those projects were.
I genuinely cannot tell you the dates. Maybe Patrice can.
It's really not that important. I just was wondering in my mind because I've been around for a shorter amount of time, but anyway. That's all I have right now. Something else may pop into my head before we're done. But
Thank you, Coach Watts. Any other comment? Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you so much, Chairman Adams. Councilman Watts, I'm not throwing any other council members under the bus, respecting everyone and making decisions based on the time frame. I was not on the council. That my initial was until 2006, 2002 through 2006, and the intent was the whole live, work, and play. So of course, because of the downturn of economy, things changed and people were pliable. So, but I do believe the intent was to have all these entities work together, as we said, in a mixed-use fashion.
And I know that when Tributary got started, however long ago that was, the intent was, retail, possibly grocery, maybe another school or two down that way, and it was
Golf course, all
yeah,
of that.
a lot of things. And I know there's been a couple downturns over the period of time that we're talking about. So I understand that property owners, have rights, but I also understand that people that have invested their livelihoods in an area have a certain amount of reason to feel like their government's protecting them. So I'm looking at both sides here.
Trying to keep the spirit of what was the initial intent.
Yes, ma'am. That's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Mr. Estes, did you have anything? Not trying to pick on you. I understand that Dr. LaShawn Berdanley has now dialed in, so I want to make sure I give her opportunity also.
I guess two comments. One, Keehee was not a rezoning ultimately. It was because the residents of the area fought that as well when it was being pursued as a rezoning. And I'm not going to give my opinion on what happened, but it was determined that the rezoning was ultimately not necessary and the project was just put there without rezoning process.
Really?
Yes. But regardless of how that came to be, and like Coach is saying, I fully understand the value of precedent, but this was intended to be a mixed-use overall development. And the fact that so many parcels have already been changed to industrial is not an argument to do it again. In my mind, it's an argument to not do it again, because there is already so much industrial development up and down that road. And it is a problem. It's not just parking of trucks, it's traffic and several other things as well. So to me, the fact that it has already been done a few times is arguing the wrong direction. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Dr. LaShawn Berdanley, are you on the line?
Yes, I am on the line.
Do you have any comment, ma'am?
No, I listened to the thorough report from the attorney. Thank you so much for your detailed report. No, I don't have any comments or any questions. Thank you, Chairman Adams.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. There are no other comments. Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have another?
I did have one last thought or sort of a rhetorical question. I don't think you probably could answer it specifically, but I'd be curious to know, what is the closest warehouse to Serenbe?
I don't have a clue.
What's the distance of the closest warehouse to Seaside, Florida?
I have no idea.
I didn't think, or Celebration for that matter.
Not a clue.
Okay. I might research that on my own. Okay.
Thankfully, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we are not in that position. We're here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We will turn now to, I'm sorry, Ms. Miller. Did I skip you?
No, you didn't. I didn't. Well, Mayor Pro Tem stole my only real question, which was when the property was actually purchased, which was in 2012. And I think we all know how much plans change. I mean, when these letters were drafted in '98, I was still in college, and I thought I was going to go into poli-sci, and so we all know how much plans change. Thank you very much for your report. I must tell you, but I also have to say Georgia is a buyer beware state, so your client did indeed know what they were purchasing. But thank you. Yeah, you stole all my questions, sir. Thank you.
Anyone else that would speak or have questions for the applicant? If not, I'm now going to open the floor for those that would come forward. And please, out of all respect for time, please just understand, I'm not picking on Mr. Sisk as he approaches. He knows the rules. I just want to make sure that if you were here and you are aware that we've had several meetings about this, just keep it to new information. If there's someone new that comes in and they don't realize it, we'll allow it to a certain extent, but thank you for coming, Mr. Sisk. Go ahead.
Okay, Philip Sisk, 9905 Hardwick Greenway, Douglasville, Georgia. Now, I only get 5 minutes, right? She talked for 20, but I only get 5. Is that correct?
Each side gets 20 minutes. You can split that however you would like to split it.
Okay.
They
okay.
just decided to
I'm gonna
have
try
a
to be
unified
brief
front then.
as I can. First of all, and that was a great report, although she's twisting a bunch of facts. In 1998, there were no houses built in Tributary. The first homes in Tributary were built in 2005. And in 2005 was when the rezoning was done to make that whole area PUD with R6 base. So that was the intent. And everybody knows what happened with the recession. And she talked about a reasonable economic return. That property has not been commercially listed for sale for a number of years. They have not tried to sell that. It's not like they've been going out trying to sell it because it's not been listed according to realtors that I've talked to, commercial realtors. So it's not like they're wanting to sell that. And they will get economic return on their money when we build houses. We have a builder now in Tributary that's building as fast as he can build. It's amazing when we go through and see the houses going up. And he is interested. They are interested in that property when they finish what's in Tributary. And that's the reason nobody's been over there so far, is because there is the property in Riverbanks and Tributary that has already been platted out for them to build. There are homes by the wastewater plant. They don't seem to have a problem with them. And as she mentioned, we have a entertainer who bought property over there, and he said it was no problem, the wastewater plant, because it's not a smell that comes from it. It's not that. And also, I was kind of surprised that she said, IDI wants it to be rezoned because who knows what's going to happen with the coronavirus? You know, nobody knows. Is that a reason we should rezone it? You know, I can't see that. And yes, we have rezoned properties over the years. Does that mean we should continue to do what we did not intend to do in the first place? This would not be returning it to how it was intended. This, if we don't oppose the rezoning, it would continue what we want. And I'll take 4,000 car trips over 1,000 big truck trips every day. Plus, with people who, because of the coronavirus, are probably going to be working from home in the future after the coronavirus, because companies have found that they can be just as effective working from home without having to have pay rent for offices. We're going to have more people working from home, so there'll probably be less than the 4,000 cars. And yes, we want, New Manchester Elementary was built with the intention of housing the New Manchester, the Tributary at New Manchester area students. And if we get more homes, already the Board of Education needs to rezone because New Manchester Elementary School is the biggest elementary school in the county. So already they need to rezone. So, you know, for all these reasons, also the traffic study, she only went back to 2017 to see growth. If she'd gone back to 2016, she'd have seen more growth than what she set up there. So I beg you not. Oh, also, do we want a truck stop off Roberts Road? I mean, we've got a truck stop down at the QT on Riverside, on Fulton Industrial. Do we really want a truck stop off Roberts Drive? And this is and we did meet with them the other day, and they were going to get in touch with us and give us some suggestions that they have. This is the first we've heard of it. So, you know, I don't think, you know, it's a solution to get Kehe's trucks off the road, yes, but it's also a truck stop. Think about that, a truck stop where trucks would be parked for hours. So I plead with you to oppose this rezoning.
Thank you, sir. Someone else?
Kevin McGuire, 3252 Bakewell Street. I am the resident HOA representative for Tributary at New Manchester. That covers both the village and Riverbanks portion. Put things in a little bit of context. My wife and I, we purchased our house in 2005. We were the first 10 people to purchase in Tributary. Great place, we loved it. There's 300 acres in the middle of this property that was owned by Mr. Ron Orr. I'm sure everybody here is aware of Mr. Orr. Originally that was supposed to be a golf course and a resort. Never came to fruition. Now we have McMaster-Carr there, which was kind of ran through really quickly. As far as Kehe goes, Mr. Orr withdrew his application to have it rezoned, only to be, next thing we knew, for lack of a better term, there was behind closed doors, this was approved with no further input from the residents. As far as Rooker goes, those are data centers. There's very minimal traffic going in and out of there. As far as 1901 Riverside Parkway, that's McMaster-Carr's entrance. There's a traffic light there. As far as the number of houses in the area that certain grocery stores need to put a place in there, if we keep putting DCs in there, we're not going to get houses. So that's what we're hoping for. As far as traffic goes, truck weight. If you have ever been down Thornton Road and Riverside Parkway, the road is just trashed right through there. It's bad. Tyler Perry's property was supposed to be zoned a movie studio. That would have been great, but I think City of Atlanta, Fort McPherson, that property came up. And well, when you have nice flat property, all the infrastructure's there, power, water, sewer, you're gonna move down there. Tyler Perry still owns that property. I don't think he has any intention, from my understanding, of selling it or really developing it. I mean, he's leaving it the way it is. So, yeah, we purchased there in 2005 because there was a vision, and this vision keeps getting chipped away slowly but surely, and we're tired of it. We'd like to maintain a little bit of what's left. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Someone else?
Evening. My name is Fielder Roberts, 3219 Blackley Old Road. Just a point of clarification here. We're talking about all the facts being shared and want it to be very accurate. To my knowledge, McMaster-Carr was not in the running in 05 when the neighborhood was being built. And when you talk about the most recent time when it was being built in 2012, the county and city's own tax records state it wasn't sold to McMaster-Carr until late in 2013. So if it was built in 2012, but it wasn't in the record until 2013, how can you believe some of the other stuff that was said? Notwithstanding, I know you're looking at me, I see you. But just a point of clarification there. If we're gonna talk about facts, we need to talk about the actual facts, not, we think it was this, think it was that, but that's facts, that's in your own system. That being said, I don't think you guys should approve this. Look at what's happening up and down Riverside. If you put more and more DCs in there, you're gonna start isolating the communities. You want Douglasville to be a community. Don't separate neighborhoods or even communities by warehouses. It's not going to be a good thing for any of us. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Someone else? Is there anyone else that would come and speak in opposition to this application? Please come forward with new information.
Dean, council members, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Angela Moy, 3214 Ann Coates Street. Thank you for letting me speak. I do want to put a few points. My husband and I purchased Douglasville. We love it. We're actually avid cyclists, so seeing the cycling route just made us so excited. We're actually from New York City. I ride in the city of New York, and I'm going to tell you as a cyclist, I would never ride Riverside Parkway. It is too scary with all the trucks. And I ride in New York City at night, 9 o'clock. In regards to this lovely woman saying that the area that they are speaking of is not appropriate for residents, I live a mile away from that area, and I love our neighborhood, and I believe that all of our other residents do too. I feel like we are at capacity with the traffic, and in regards to her point about truck versus residential, currently, majority of all of the residents in Tributary are working from home. We're not commuting. I've been working from home for 10 years, and I leave my house once a week to go to Target, just because I need to go to Target. Love my Target. However, some of my other neighbors work from home. They don't even go. They use Instacart. They use Publix. They're not even leaving the neighborhood. We're enjoying ourselves. And recently, we found out there's actually a concept Publix store being built 4 miles away from us, a concept store with pizza and all of this great stuff. So if they're willing to put the energy and the money in that area, I think that hopefully that we will get that as well. The other thing is, sometimes I have to go to the post office on Fulton Industrial, and it's really scary. I've seen an increase of theft, crime, and prostitution around the truck stops. We don't want that. We've got children. We've got beautiful, wonderful children in our community, and we don't want that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there someone else that would like to speak? How much time do we have, Ms. Acker? 9 minutes. Please come forward.
Good evening, Council. Janelle Alene. I reside at 3216 Ancoat Street. I'm going to try not to use this last 9 minutes and 46 seconds, but I do want to speak to you briefly in opposition of this application. What we have just heard from IDI's representative was in fact an eloquent speech as to what IDI wants to do in this neighborhood. Their version of the facts is what it is. But what we have had happen tonight is you guys ask poignant questions that the neighborhood is still trying to get answers to. In the same way that you have not received answers tonight, we also have not received answers. We are at a point where we are getting the opportunity to make a real impact on what this neighborhood will be in the next 10, 20, 30 years. Do we want a strip of warehouses with an island in the middle, or do we want to give this area a chance to thrive? I sit here with about 20 residents from my neighborhood and from neighborhoods in the near vicinity, dressed in red, to show that we are in opposition of this application. We ask that you join us today, once again, to oppose this. It is not in the interest of the residents. We argue that it is not in the interest of the city. Please take the time to oppose this. We appreciate everything that you guys have listened to. We know that we've been here for 6 meetings and work sessions, and we appreciate all the time that you've put into this. Please oppose this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Someone else, please come forward. Anyone else that would like to speak? I would ask you to please speak up. With the rain going on, we may have a difficult time hearing you.
Thank you. Tony Fleming, 2410 River Place Crossing. I would like to add 2 comments from last Thursday's meeting. One is that the collection of pictures I provided you was taken over a 2-week period from the meeting last week and the previous meeting 2 weeks prior, okay? So it was only during that 2-week period that I assembled that pictorial that you saw. The second thing that I would say is that all of those pictures were, in none of those pictures did I have to camp out. I put my camera in my car, and when I drove to work as normal, when I saw something, I pulled over, I took a photo, kept going. It was never looking for something staged to occur. That was a normal drive for me to work each day that you saw captured in the course of 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm not the timekeeper, but I think that we're close, but we may still have time for other. Ms. Acker?
Minute 59 seconds.
Okay, anyone else that would like to speak, please come forward. We're nearing the end of the time for opposition to speak. Seeing none, I will close that portion. And I believe that, are we required then to give the applicant a rebuttal? Is that correct, Ms. Littlefield? We are not, since this is the second hearing. Okay. Seeing then, we will close the public hearing. And I will ask if there are any comments of council, or if Madam Mayor may have a comment or a question towards anyone that has spoken in opposition, any reply or any comment. Anyone in the room? What about Dr. LaShawn Burdanley? Would she have any comment?
I'm sorry. Were you speaking to me, Chairman Adams?
Yes, I was yielding to you to see if you might have any other comment or question. I can't see you, so you can't raise your hand.
No, you can't see me. No, I do understand what the residents are concerned about. Unfortunately, well, I'll say it's kind of bittersweet. I live in a neighborhood where there has not been much growth, but we've definitely dealt with truck traffic and still dealing with a lot of construction and truck traffic. So I do understand the residents and their passion and where they're going with this. That's all the comments I have.
Thank you. Okay. If there are no other
You're
comments.
welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Seeing none, then we will close that portion of the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments that council or Madam Mayor may have that we would speak of between us? Coach, I believe you'd like to speak.
I was just going to say this report, getting it tonight, it's very difficult to look at it and give it any weight other than what was presented. It was presented well, but just there's a lot of stuff in here, and I don't know how much of a difference it will make one way or another. But there's some things in here that they definitely wanted us to look at. I know she hit the high points tonight, but anyway, I wish we had gotten this, a couple weeks ago when we started this. If it was even available then, it may not have been, but anyway, that's all.
Thank you, Coach. Others? Okay. It brings us to a decision that we have to make, and I'm going to ask because I need input, I would like to hear from the council if there's anything that you've heard tonight concerning the potential for a gift from the developer. Would that make any difference to us as a council in what Mr. Sisk characterized as a truck stop? What I would like to characterize it as would be an overflow parking area to benefit the area as far as getting those trucks off the right of way. Is there any comment or question anyone had about that? That's interesting to me. I'll reserve my comments on it until after I've heard from anyone else. That is new information, as is all of the presentation that IDI's attorney has mentioned. Okay.
Just quickly, I will repeat a comment I've made previously. It sounds like that may well alleviate a little bit of the parking issue along Riverside. But in my opinion and in my experience, that's not the biggest issue. It's the actual traffic on the road and the speeds that they do or do not travel. That is a much bit more serious issue to me than the parking on the side of the road.
Thank you, sir.
I would
Anyone
just-
else?
I
Yes,
would just say,
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's very generous for the applicant to offer that as a potential solver, to as one of the issues. It would have been, as the citizens has said, and Mr. Sisk said, if they had had an opportunity to present that to the residents maybe before now, it would have maybe have made a little bit of a difference with the residents and how they perceived the sincerity of the applicants. Not to say that they're
Interesting.
insincere, but it's at the right now when it's time for us to make the decision. So if they had had that opportunity to have a conversation, a lot can be done with just talking and have the lines of communication open.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other
I
comments?
think it's a generous offer, though.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, one last time I'd like to just say that even though I know that zoning gets changed all the time, and I know that folks have come before the council to ask us to change zoning for this or that. I won't even name anything in particular, but sometimes a change in zoning benefits the community where it's changed, and sometimes it doesn't. The community have spoken overwhelmingly and through emails and in person about what they think that another, not so much, I don't think they're speaking as much against this developer as they are just the idea that it's just going to keep, from their viewpoint, I've gathered that they think that there's no stopping it. If we change the zoning for this, then we'll be changing the zoning, and the more you have, the more you get. Or at least that's what I've gathered from the things that they've said. So again, I said before, precedent always doesn't always have to apply. Sometimes you just got to decide at what point do we have enough of whatever we're discussing at the time. There might be too many grocery stores one of these days, or too many alcohol, liquor stores. We've discussed that before. At what point do we reach a threshold where we need some other type of development in a certain area? So anyway, that's my.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Coach. I'm sorry, I was looking at the mayor.
Yeah, because I was agreeing, just
I'm
looking at
sorry.
him, trying to be the amen corner, just to say that I know that the coach is saying, like what I said on Thursday, it's not new information, but that rezoning is a privilege, it's not a right. So when an applicant purchases, as Mayor Pro Tem says, and Councilmember Miller, you purchase, you know what the zoning is, not purchasing for potential for it to be something else. That is, of course, the applicant's right. They are the owner of the property, but it's zoned a certain thing, and it is not your right to have it rezoned. It definitely is a privilege. So we're open, of course, to anything that would be beneficial to the entire community with the developer, owner, in conjunction with the residents as well, and the entire city.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're
I
welcome.
believe Councilwoman Miller has a comment.
Yeah, I just have one quick comment, if I could. I am very proud of our community and all the hard work that has gone in. I believe we'd have to check with Ms. Hampton, but I think it's like 17 plans that we have going on right now. Our staff is amazing. Everyone works really hard. We have these great plans going on, and I feel like we've dumped a lot of our blood, sweat, and tears into these plans to determine what is best for our community and our residents and our community, our neighborhoods. And so when you come and say that someone else got a zoning change, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, that's rather unfortunate, because right now, maybe take a look at some of the plans that we have going on and see where we could use a warehouse or another type of business that maybe would be good for our community. I don't, in my short time right here on council, I don't think I've seen such a overwhelming cry of no from the citizens. Even the petitions that have come before us that may not have looked great, there was someone to come and tell us that there was something good, but I think there's definitely something lacking, a lot of consideration that could be put into this for the residents, because I've not heard from one person to say that this could benefit the community in any way. Please don't take this wrong, because I'm very thankful for the information and all your time here, but please understand where we're coming from as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Miller. I'm about to close. Anyone else? Seeing that, and in the face of what I have heard, and with the information that's been provided both by the applicant and by those residents in attendance, I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your respect. You have done a great job as a community. The developer has done a great job as an applicant in trying to push this forward. My motion on the item B, item 20-197, in the face of what I've heard from council, would be to deny.
Second.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I have a motion to deny item 20-197 and second from Councilman Estes. Is there any further discussion or any other comments or questions from council members before I ask for the vote? All those in favor of denying item 20-197, please say aye.
Aye.
Councilmember Burdanley?
Aye.
Thank you. All those, so that's in favor of denying. All those that want to approve item 20-197.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, I think you would say a no vote there rather than a yes vote to deny.
A no vote.
Thank you.
A no vote on 20-197. Please raise your hands. Raise your hands so the clerk can see. Okay. Okay, so it's been unanimously approved to deny item 20-197.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
Thank you all. We'll move on to item C. Item C is consider a request for plat approval for D.R. Horton for the purpose of subdividing into 67 tracts, 24.25 acres in land lot 155, District 1, parcels 396 to 462. Application by Jeff Wilkerson with LaCroix Engineering. Ms. Williams, our employee, our staff member in the development department, is going to update us on that, as I think there's some new information that they have provided. Ms.
Yes,
Williams?
sir. Patrice Williams, Community Development Director, 6701 Church Street. We did introduce this item on Thursday night, but at this time, I'm going to defer to the applicant as they have a request.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Michelle McCauley. I work with LaCroix Engineering. We're located at 3475 Corporate Way in Duluth, Georgia. I'm here on behalf of our client, D.R. Horton, to request that this item be tabled until the July 30th, August 3rd calendar. I apologize for any inconvenience or confusion that's happened with regard to this matter today. There is a misunderstanding as to the timing of this plat application between the property owners, the tributary development manager, and our client, D.R. Horton. And as a result, we were requesting that you table it for us to resolve that misunderstanding. Thank you.
Okay. You have heard the applicant in their request for July 30th and August 3rd hearing, and you've heard the reasoning for that. Is there any discussion or any question of the applicant concerning the item? Those are dates that would be applicable to us, is that correct? Staff, just make sure I don't make a mistake here. Is there anyone that would like to speak or any comment? Any public comment concerning that item? Seeing none, then I make a motion that we approve the tabling of this item 20-291 to the meetings of July 30th and August 3rd.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I have a motion to table item 20-291 to the July 30th and August 3rd meetings. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I had a simultaneous second. Did you get Ms. Acker, whomever punched in? Was it Mayor Pro Tem? Yes, sir. Okay, it's been properly moved in second to table item 20-291 to the meetings of July 30th and August 3rd. All those in favor, without any additional comments or questions from council members? All those in favor of tabling this item, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Aye.
To table. You didn't nay, did you, Councilmember Burdanley? That was just a delayed response. Okay. Thank you, City Manager. So
Thank you.
as the ayes have it, 20-291 is tabled to the meetings of July 30th, August 3rd.
Thank you. I apologize for any inconvenience.
Thank you,
No
ma'am.
problem.
Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Madam Mayor, that's all that we have tonight under Planning and Development Committee. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. You did a wonderful job. Not taken lightly, any of these votes and concerns that we have. We'll move on then to Public Improvement and Beautification Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Nicole Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business this evening for public improvement and beautification.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll move on to Public Relations Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Howard Estes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Public Relations Committee has no business this evening.
Thank you, sir. We'll move on to Public Safety Committee. The Vice Chair is Councilmember Chris Watts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
We have one item tonight, hold a public hearing to consider a request for the alcoholic beverages licenses for the on-premise sale and consumption of wine and malt beverages and spirituous liquor at the following establishment: licensee TBL 25 Jet, Table 25 Jet LLC, TBA Table 25 Fork and Wine, location 7475 Douglas Boulevard, site 111 and 112, proposed agent outlet manager Takia Priester. The required fees have been paid into the Finance Department. Ms. Priester, are you here this evening? Come on forward. Come on down. Go ahead and state your name and address for the record, and if you have anything to add to your application from the other night, go ahead and do it at that time.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Takia Priester with Table 25 Fork and Wine, 7475 Douglas Boulevard, Suite 111 and 112, Douglasville, Georgia, 30135. And I do not have anything additional to say.
Thank you. Of course, this was before us the other night, and a lot of folks did come forward and spoke about how excited they were about another restaurant. A point of order, I know in the past it seemed like Councilman Davis, when we have a public hearing on Thursday, we don't usually follow it with a public hearing, although it says that here. Do I have to open it up? And I mean, we didn't have anybody come forward the other. Well, a couple folks came forward in favor, but
We do not.
we do not. Okay.
City Manager, correct? Do not.
Okay. Good. All right. Have any comments from Mayor or Council?
I do have a comment, Mr.
Yes,
Vice
ma'am.
Chair, to the applicants. Thank you so much. We're excited. If this gets approved tonight for Table 25 Fork and Wine, and you were saying you had vegan options and all of that, is it regular for carnivores? I mean, just like every now and again, if you want to have, if it's not a bean burger, can I have a regular burger?
We just wanted to make something a little more upscale with options for everybody, from the adults, vegans, children, everything. So it'll be something for everybody there, including
Okay.
brunch on the weekends as well.
Okay, because I have to sneak in vegetarian options with my family, and they don't know it's a bean burger. So, but if they know it's, specifically just, they may not want to. I maybe can't trick them to come in, but if you have that, then I may order something that they don't know is vegan or something.
It'll be our secret.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Chair.
Anybody else? All right. With that being said, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 20-259.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vice Chair. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you so much, Councilman Estes. It's been properly moved and second, moved by the Vice Chair, Councilman Watson, second by Councilman Estes to approve item 20-259. Any further discussion or comments or questions from council members? Thank you. Not seeing any. All those in favor of approving 20-259, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Councilman, Member Burdanley, we did hear you. All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. 20-259 is unanimously approved. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Madam Mayor,
Yes.
that's all I had under public safety this evening.
Thank you so much, Coach Watts. We'll move on to Recreation, Culture, and Tourism Committee. That is chaired by Councilmember Chris Watts as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business tonight on the Recreation, Culture, and Tourism.
Thank you, sir. Our Technology Committee, that's chaired by Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Terry Miller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business at this time under the Technology Committee.
Thank you, sir. Transportation Committee, that's chaired by Councilmember Dr. LaShawn Burdanley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no business tonight under transportation.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there any other business to come before council?
You're welcome.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Is there any other business to come before council tonight from council members?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
In regards, yes, thank you. In regards to the, we're not able to have the assistance of the Sheriff's Department as it relates to trustees and working with our maintenance and sanitation. So I know that our staff are working very, very diligently on making sure that we keep things up to par. I just wanted to know, is there a strategic plan on priorities and how we're going to make things work a little bit smoother, since we don't really know how this COVID-19 is going?
Councilmember Burdanley, you're reading my mind. I was going to talk to the city manager about that this evening. I did receive a call from the mall manager about Douglas Boulevard, and I believe that's county, but I'm not as 100% sure. At the Hampton Inn, on that side of the road, on the right-hand side, all the way up past. So his concern was they're taking care of rooms to go and the mall, but in front of the mall, Olive Garden, all the way to probably that plaza where the chicken, I can't think of, Buffalo Wild Wings. So his concern was just, that they're trying to make certain the mall is cleaned up, because we've asked them to do that, that if we could, because we don't have the trustees, it seems like litter is out there. So I'm not certain if that's the city or the county.
I will get with Greg. I know that there have been some trustee guards that have opened up, just so you all understand how that augments our staff. We typically get about 4 crews, so that equates to about 40 people. So we don't have 40 people on staff. So I didn't know if you all knew how many people we utilize, and sometimes it's more than that when you add community service. So you're ultimately looking at sometimes close to 60 people that we utilize to clean up our day-to-day. I do not believe that we're going to get that number back, but I think that we can get some. But to address your question, Dr. Burdanley, I can get with Greg and Melissa tomorrow to send something out to everyone this week, just to let them know where we are in the process as far as how we're prioritizing. Of course, we're prioritizing the immediate need, and of course, maintenance subsidizes sanitation. So when we have individuals that call out and they're sick, they have to do sanitation. So some of that is hurting us as well. But if you send me the particular locations that you have, we'll make certain those get cleaned up. And then at the same token, I will send you all a list as to where we are and the schedule of where we need to get to. But not having those trustee guards and community services really put a damper on how we can provide service in that area.
Okay, City Manager, so
thank you, Ms. Hampton. So with the funds that were that will be granted from the state, from the federal, is there any way that we can look at maybe temporary assistance to go under that, possibly, if needed?
It would be, I would have to, let me look into that. Just off the top of my head, I think it would be tough to, be a tough stretch, but we can always ask.
Right.
So, and of course, with the rain, like we've had today, grass is ever growing, and it's very hard to keep up. But I will definitely take a look at it. I'll get you all the priority list, and then see what type of alternative plans we can come up with to try to keep up with the litter and the grass cutting.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Hampton.
Ms. Hampton, Douglas Boulevard, is it city or county?
It's in the it's in the city limits. The major, what part, you're near the mall?
The mall?
You're talking, yeah, that's city limits, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that whole, like you were saying, it's the grass and the litter. And I drove it today after receiving the call, and it is it may be from the 4th of July. People may have been out there with fireworks. I'm not certain if the mall had anything.
I could tell you a lot is from July 4th. I think I was talking to Councilwoman Miller, and she was addressing a personal witness that she saw over the weekend with everyone being able to do their own thing. That pretty much aided to it. So I think those who were not as gracious and cleaned up behind themselves left some work for us to do.
And you will look at the CARES. You'll look at the CARES Act to see if we can have anything from COVID-19 that may help. I think we can maybe connected to say that it's germs from litter and bugs. I don't know.
Well, I will be, I won't stretch it too much, just to know, Ms.
Whatever's
Callen
within the
advised me
umbrella.
today that any money we get from the federal government over $500,000, we are audited by the federal government, so we need to make certain that it
Yes, ma'am.
ties in correctly.
Of course, everything within the confines of the law. Any other comments? Any other business to come before council tonight? The other thing I would say is I know during committees, Councilmember Verdanley, we had a report from Mr. Landrum, our Parks and Recreations Director, who told us about Georgia PGA, that it's going really well. We had 91 participants sign up, and so they are playing today and tomorrow. And so the award ceremony will be tomorrow. And I think you said the team from Augusta was leading the pack in the Georgia PGA that's being held at West Pines. Yeah, so we're excited about that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other business from council members? I know we received a request for a resolution for equality by one of our citizens this past Thursday at our work session, and legal and staff is looking over that to bring it back to us for us to have a consideration to vote on, and I believe that's in the next round of council meetings. Yes, city manager says the next round of council meetings. So we did not forget about the request from Mr. Penniman with Fit for the Future and Black Diamonds. We're looking at that resolution as well. Okay, we'll move on to updates from city staff. Our city attorney, Mr. Joel Dotson. No business, Madam Mayor. Thank you, sir. Chief Assistant City Attorney, Ms. Susan Littlefield.
No business, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Our Chief of Police, that's the Deputy Chief Sue-Ann Shaw.
No business, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, ma'am. Our City Manager, Ms. Marcia Hampton.
No business, Madam Mayor.
What? Okay. Staff reports. We don't have any staff reports. Comments from citizens and delegates. If you have lasted this entire meeting, we know it's been long and we appreciate your time. And so if you would like to give us any comments, we'd love to hear from you. You have 5 minutes. Please give us your name and address for the record, and then you may address us.
5 minutes.
In totality.
My name is Kevin McGuire, 3252 Bakewell Street, Douglasville, Georgia, 30135. I read somewhere years ago that local government impacts my life, the lives of citizens, more than the federal government does. On June 15th, in my travels, my work, I driving a truck, and I listen to NPR. And one of the segments I listened to, there are 3 panelists, and they weren't talking about the politics. They were just talking about the civil unrest that was going on in the United States, in the world, and locally. And one of those panelists was Mr. Kofi Smith. And he wrote an op-ed in the AJC on June 13th. And I was hoping I would have time to read it all, but I don't believe I do. But I'd like to read the last little bit of it, if I may. And it is what to say and do. And Mr. Kofi Smith is a chairman of Atlanta Airline, something to do with Atlanta. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I know Kofi.
It says what to say and do. And he says, I'm not trying to castigate the entire white race. I do not believe all white people are bad, nor do I believe all white people are racist. On the contrary, I believe the majority of white people are good and decent human beings with beautiful hearts and good intentions. However, it is no longer acceptable to have a good heart, good intentions, and remain silent. We need you. I need you to step up, step out, stand up, and speak out. In the past, white people have done this, even when it meant putting their lives and reputations at risk. Their sacrifice and courage helped to create change for black people. If you want to see examples of what stepping up, stepping out, and standing up and speaking out looks like, look at the photographs of the amazing white women in Louisville, Kentucky who formed a human barrier between black protesters and police. Look at the awesome actions of Sheriff Chris Swanson in Flint, Michigan, who took off his riot gear and walked with demonstrators. At this point, the words are not enough. You must put your words into collective action. If you really want to make an impact, go big and hopefully become a catalyst for lasting change. Here's my big idea and my plea for action. I'm asking all white leaders, CEOs, athletes, actors, and politicians to use their to use your influence to galvanize the white community to gather in Washington, D.C. and flood the National Mall with your beautiful faces for the Million White March. Black people did it in 1995 for the Million Man March. It was the most amazing gathering I've had the privilege to attend. How much more amazing would it be for us to see you standing for us? I posted this op-ed on our community's social media page, and I was taken aback by the positive response it got. And I was very humbled by this. And for the last 2 weeks, it started out small. A lot of people would like to join us, but we've just started out sitting in our park talking, listening, and trying to understand. I'm hoping something, maybe we can grow this larger. But for right now, it's starting with us. We're trying to put our best foot forward for everybody, and I'm hoping that the city, I don't know. I'm just hoping that, this can grow and we can keep talking and keep the discussion and just be honest about it and not judge people. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. LaGuardia. And of course, we're not supposed to debate back and forth, but I did want to say something, and I want to thank you for bringing that report to us. I do know Dr. Kofi Smith. He's a personal friend. We were in RLI, the Regional Leadership Institute, together that ARC has in 2016. And so he's a graduate from Georgia Tech, and he runs a department in Atlanta Airport. And so his report, his article in AJC was very poignant and heartfelt. And I will say to you that being the only person tonight of color on this council, I do understand, I'm the first African-American mayor and female to serve as mayor in the city of Douglasville since 1875. So my council members, I thanked everyone. I didn't have an opportunity to thank Councilman Member Miller tonight, but I personally thanked each council member for considering the unity call that Mr. Brandon Penniman brought before the council last Thursday. So I do believe we are a community, and we need to be mimicked across the country and the world, that we are trying to work together. We've had 7 marches with this, not the pandemic of COVID-19, but the pandemic of injustice and racism in the country that's come to the forefront again. And I said to Councilman Estes, I don't want my grandchildren to have to fight the same fight that my mother fought in the 70s in the movement, that my grandmother had to fight in Mississippi coming to Ohio. So I do believe it is not falling on deaf ears that we're listening, and this council is taking all those things into consideration. In our next round of meetings, we will vote, I believe, in favor of supporting the equality resolution that's been brought to the city council. So again, we've had our police department held a rally for equality, and again, we've had 7 marches, and they were all very peaceful about all the things that's happening in the country. So we hear you. I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything, but I'm proud to be a member of this community. You're welcome.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I think what Kevin said is, and of course, the article that he read from is absolutely crucial, and I think I said something to the effect the other day, and I'll say it again. You've got to have more people who look like me speaking up. People of color can talk to their, excuse the expression, blue in the face, and it's not going to matter until people who look like me take the lead, because that's where the problem arises. There was another local politician wrote something the other day, and I'm not going to comment on who it was or the specifics, but basically they described that person looked like me, and they said that they didn't understand why there was a problem, why we couldn't all get along, and that they grew up in a community here where everything was fine and peachy, and it didn't matter what your color was, and people respected each other, and that was all fine. And then I realized I'm reading this, and it's like, that's all good and fine from a white perspective. But she didn't know what the experience was on the other side. I can go my entire life and say there's no color problem, there's no racial issues, because I've never experienced that. Well, of course that's not, because I've never been persecuted, or I've never received, I've never had a police officer pull me over because of the color of my skin. I've never had a woman in an elevator, recede to the back and clutch her purse because of what I look like. I've never had somebody lock their door as I walk down the street. I've never experienced that. But people of color have. And I don't understand how a person who looks like me can say there's not a problem if you've never experienced it, because you never will experience that. And they said, well, I never heard any complaints from people. Well, of course you didn't, because if people of color complained back then, they probably would have lost their job, or they would have been ostracized in some way, or something even far worse. You might have had a cross burned on your lawn. That's why they didn't hear complaints when they were younger. And people need to understand that that's, until you've walked a mile in somebody else's shoes, you need to listen. You've got to listen. That's all it takes. Start there. Listen to other people. Listen to people who have different experience from you. Don't rely on your own experiences and then project that onto the world, because your experience is very different from the person next to you. So thank you, Kevin. I appreciate what you said. That's all I have to say about it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any other comments from council members? Very good. Okay, we'll keep on moving with citizens and delegates if we have any other comments. Yes, sir. Give us your name and address for the record. Hello, Madam Mayor. Name is Marshall Phipps. My Yes, sir. address is 79 Brookside Court. Now, I came to give you all a general update regarding my work regarding the Hunter Park train. Yes, now, sir. the good news is that I got a team assembled, and next month I'll have the funding needed to file for my 501 nonprofit status with the IRS. Once that paperwork is filed, I'll definitely submit a copy to the city, and hopefully by then we could probably sign some sort of paper which shows an understanding between the city and the park, since I went to the park I think a couple weeks back, and well, first they were happy to see me. It's been a while. They love to talk to me. And two, they said just to keep up the good work. So so far I was able to get in contact with the Railroad Museum again with retrieving those train carriages from the mountain. They're not sure when they'll get to it because of the current state of affairs, but they told me they'll get to it, and they'll let me know when they will. And once those are brought back, we'll put them in Alabama for the time being, just that way they're out of the rain, and then we'll bring it back to Douglasville for restoration. And when all the paperwork is filed, I'll start getting estimates of how much it will cost to get everything off the ground for phase 1 of the project. And then our organization will then try to apply for a governmental grant, so that way we get the immediate funding of just getting the train up and running again, hopefully by 2022. Okay. Well, thank you for all of the hard work that you're doing. And again, I'll say to you, I'm not trying to put a pin in your dreams, but there's a kite and a runner on the kite. So if it doesn't apply here in Douglasville at Hunter Park, that you still take your platform and your everything that you've done, and you can apply it in other places as well. Yes, so I do know don't lose heart. Yeah, I do know some places in Douglasville that could be a substitute in the event if the Hunter Park option doesn't work. Yes, sir. Thank you. So I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm just telling you that we are continuing to move forward with the parks, and if that is not included at this time, that certainly keep pushing forward and don't spin your wheels right here. In other words, I know you're a train man, but you just keep a little train that you go somewhere else and put it somewhere else. I'll see what I can do. Yes, sir. Thank you. Any comments from council members? Thank you. Thank you, sir. The floor is still open for comments from citizens and delegates. If you'd like to speak to us, you have 5 minutes. Please come to the podium and give us your name and address for the record, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Well, I don't see anyone else. If we don't have any other business, then this council meeting is adjourned.